As I was listening to the President of the United States yesterday do an hour and 20-minute press conference, which aired right here on KCMO Talk Radio, was not airing, I will add, on KMBZ. Do it that what you want for the news station of Kansas City. I couldn't help but get flashbacks to COVID when the president was doing daily press briefings that were marathon hour, 2-hour sessions. But yesterday was very different. Yesterday was very different because I'm watching the president, I believe, struggle internally with what he's going to do tonight ahead of the 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central Time deadline for Iran, when he says if there is not a deal, well, he's going to, in his words, blow everything up. I don't believe that Donald Trump wants to do any of this. It's not what he ran on. It's not what he really promised the American people. But they got the intelligence where when push came to shove, the president felt like basically a month ago, we had no choice but to get ahead of this and finally do something about Iran possessing nuclear capabilities that will have a major impact on not just the West, the United States in particular. And maybe not right now for his generation, but for his children and his grandchildren. And that was the calculation the president of the United States seemed to be making with the launch of Operation Epic Fury. But as we sit here 35 days later, the president is in a very difficult spot. And this is exactly the spot that Iran wanted to put him in. Because they don't care. They're kamikaze pilots. Of course, we know about what their deal is when it comes to, they don't fear death. They don't care about the goodwill of their people. And that is something that is unfathomable to us here in the United States. But you're trying to deal with and negotiate with people who don't care about the well-being of those in their country. And by the way, in many respects, don't care about their own livelihoods. They are willing to go down because guess what? They think they've got 72 virgins waiting for them. So how do you negotiate with that? What do you do? How do you sit there and say, well, let's just get a little more, let's just kind of work on the edges here on some kind of ceasefire and negotiation, and everything's going to be A-okay. How are you going to do that? It's not simple. But Trump is trying to negotiate in the way that he has negotiated for his entire real estate career, business career, and political career. And that's bullying. And that's fine. It's a style that many of us were drawn to when he first came down the escalator 11 years ago. But whether it's Putin or whether it's Iran or China for that matter, when you're dealing with these countries that don't care about the well-being of their own people, that kind of negotiation has not proven to work. So what's going to happen tonight? I don't know. If I was a betting man, if I'm just sitting here with you right now having a conversation saying, Pete, what do you think happens tonight? I do not believe it is going to be, as it has been dubbed, bridge and power plant day. I don't think every bridge is getting blown up in Iran. I don't think the power plants are getting blown up in Iran because deep down, I don't believe that's what Donald Trump wants to do. And the off-ramp is going to be something along the lines of, we're deep in negotiations. We need a little more time. We hope that we can get this thing done. Maybe there's some mild bombing, some light bombing or something like that. But I don't believe that we are going to wipe Iran off the map, which was a big part of yesterday's press conference.
Maybe a bridge or two.
Exactly. We may have a smattering of bombs on certain bridges, but I do not believe that tonight the 8 p.m. deadline is going to come on the East Coast, and then by midnight the country's totally wiped out. I don't see that. Because when Trump gets mad, he talks tougher. When Trump gets mad, he gets more ticked off. His words get bigger, his threats get larger. But it doesn't mean that's what's actually going on here. I think he's trying to portray himself as absolutely insane to the Iranians to get these guys to move. But there's very little evidence to suggest they're going to move based on what's been out there and some of the reporting that has happened during the overnight hours. So a new report here from Axios says that Trump might delay the deadline tonight of 8 p.m. Eastern if he sees a deal is coming together. Now, this would mark the fifth time that the president has delayed his ultimatum. So it's obviously this is all about rah-rah America. You know who I'm rooting for and who I know basically all of us should be rooting for, every single one of us, whether you like Trump or not. But at the same time, wiping Iran off the face of the earth is not the answer here. It's not. You will have millions of innocent people end up dead, and that from the get-go was never the point of any of this. It was trying to allow the Iranians to have a chance to take over their country and win back their country. And, 30 some odd days ago, it was like, hey, we took out the leadership. Now it's on the Iranian people to go out there and take their country back. Well, it's very clear that the mullahs and these leaders in Iran had a structure in place to make sure that they stayed in power. Because all these guys, even as they're getting off, are still running the country. So what appeared to be very simple, or at least was told to us to be very simple 30 some odd days ago, is not happening. Let's be clear. It's not happening that way. So what's the end result? How does this all play out? What's the goal right now? The goal right now should be to figure out a way to get leadership in place that is at least going to be less hostile to the entire West. I don't know exactly how that happens. Never mind by tonight at 8 o'clock. It's not clear to me how that ends up happening. The president insisted yesterday that things were getting closer to a deal, but we'll have to see.
We were very close to a deal. And then I got a call from Mr. Witkoff, Mr. Kushner, and J.D. saying, I think they're breaking the deal. I said, tell them that's okay. Don't worry about it. But tell them to look out their window and watch. And within 45 minutes, I gave the order to knock out the biggest bridge. I gave the order, knock out the biggest bridge in, I believe, the Middle East, but the biggest bridge in Iran. And within 10 minutes after I gave that order, that bridge was over. So do I want to do that? No. Do I want to destroy their infrastructure? No. It will take them 100 years to rebuild.
There you go. That was the president as part of this marathon press conference yesterday. Pete, I'm afraid Iran's going to put all the women and children on the bridges and near the power plants. Yeah, I mean, that's the conundrum here in all this. You're not dealing with level-headed, reasonable individuals. You're not dealing with people that care about their own population. They've killed tens of thousands of their own citizens in just the last couple of months. On the text line as well, we've got this. Pete, bullying? It'll be interesting to see what kind of parenting style you have. Hey, if this thing flops, I'm sure they'll take you at CNN.
Such a nice man.
I don't know what your point is. The president would tell you he's a bully. He prides himself on being a bully. That's his negotiating style. You think that was meant to be an insult to the president of the United States? He'd be the first one to tell you that bullying is part of his repertoire. Get over yourself. Seriously. Stop looking at this through the prism of what makes Trump look good. Okay? We're on the verge of a major escalation of a war. And if your concern is about what makes Donald Trump look good, come on, get over yourself. What matters is the well-being of millions of people around the globe who are going to be impacted by this, including Americans, as we potentially send men and women into war tonight, into battle tonight, if we're going to be bombing the entire country all over the place. That's all that we should care about. That's it. That's what matters here. And that's why we should be praying for Donald Trump. And yes, praying for the Iranian leadership. Praying for them. That with about 14 hours to go, level heads prevail. Calm, cool, collected heads prevail. I'm not going to hold my breath. I'm not. But I do believe in this administration. I do believe in them doing the right thing, buying more time. I do not think tonight is going to be a 4-hour bombardment of power plants and bridges, because I think everybody, at least in charge in this country, understands the severity of what that could lead to. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We are streaming, as always, on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Now, here in Kansas City, we will find out tonight whether or not the earnings tax is going to pass. If you're in Kansas City, you are going to the polls this morning to vote on this. It is overwhelmingly likely expected to pass based on what's happened over the last 60 years with this e-tax. But what's the case against it? And what are you seeing if you're getting out there and you're going to the polls already? 621, good morning. It is great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We're streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app as always. And I clearly have hit a nerve this morning on the text line. I'm not sure why, but I think it might set up for some good Tirade Tuesdays coming up at 8:30 here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. If anyone thinks that's something I've said at 6 o'clock, I'm not going to say the rest of the show. You're kidding yourself. Everything I say at 6 a.m. leads the podcast that we put up after the show wraps up today. So I've seen a little bit of this saying, Pete, you'll say semi-critical things at 6 a.m. and then stay quiet by 9 o'clock. I don't know what show you're listening to. I genuinely think it might be a different show. I don't know what that means. What I say at 6 goes up on the podcast. We probably will talk about it again because we may be 12 hours, 13 hours away from really escalating Operation Epic Fury. So it's not like I'm not going to talk about it again. I'll talk about it plenty in the hours to come. And my opinion largely isn't going to change. I'll try to find some other angles on it. I've got a lot of audio from President Trump yesterday, including when he called Kim Jong-un mentally retarded. That was quite a moment in yesterday's press conference. So there's a lot we're going to be getting to, and there's a lot of time for you as well. But here in Kansas City, John, are the polls open? Are they open at 6 right now on the Missouri side of the state line?
I assume so. I did not check, and I didn't see the official notification. It's municipal stuff, and so there's one of those low turnout days probably here.
It probably is. I think Missouri usually starts at 6, and Kansas typically starts at 7, if my memory serves me correct. But
right.
Either way, if you are a Kansas City resident,
open until 7. So
until 7, yeah. You are going to be going to the polls today in Missouri, if you haven't yet already, to vote on the earnings tax, which means you are voting to tax yourself at 1% of your income to go to the city of Kansas City, Missouri. And you will do that, and you will then say, well, you know, I'll justify it because there are people in Overland Park and people in Lee's Summit and people in Liberty who are coming down here to work, and you know what? We're going to take some of their money to subsidize our basic services, our fire, our police, our EMS, our potholes, our street lights, and everything else. And that's why 5 years ago, when this was on the ballot, it passed with flying colors. Yeah, it passed with 77% of the vote. So I'm not sitting here holding my breath and expecting Kansas Cityans to not pass the earnings tax today. But what I would do is ask yourself, as you see the mayor of Kansas City and different city council members out there saying, well, if we don't pass this, boy, we're not going to have a police department. Ask yourself if you think that's really true. Kansas City is the only city that has an earnings tax, but amazingly, all these other cities around us still have police and fire and everything else. Kansas City spends $4,400 per resident, by far the most by any city in the entire metro. Is that money well spent? When they say we need this to survive, I think that as a taxpayer, you should ask yourself, really? Why? Let's open up the books. Brent's in Overland Park on KCMO. What's up, Brent? Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I agree with you. Why? Why would people vote to tax themselves at such a high rate? Exactly. The police are going to continue to be funded. The politicians are going to continue to be funded. Guess what? Stadiums are going to continue to be funded even if people vote no. It's insane.
Mm-hmm. Well, they'll say we've got to double the sales tax and we're not going to have any money. Maybe not to spend at the current levels, but trust me, there'll still be money for Kansas City, Missouri if they have to phase out the earnings tax.
Absolutely. And if the earning tax gets voted down, they're going to figure out creative ways to, assess that tax in other ways. Mm-hmm. But it will at least send a message, maybe put them back on their heels, maybe put each individual politician that comes up for a vote think, hey, I better do what my constituents want. I better do what the people that I represent want. And clearly this is going down.
I would love to see it, Brent. I really would. I just I have no confidence that it's going to happen, man. None whatsoever.
Okay, so my confidence was, I was thinking it was pretty good, but then I heard you say the stats from 5 years ago, 77%. But I don't know. At least we've woken up on the stadium. At least that got voted down, that we're not going to be insane and fund billionaires' stadiums. Mm-hmm. So maybe we're getting better. Maybe.
Do you work in KCMO, Brent? Like, do you have to pay this thing?
I do not. But
okay.
I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
Some years ago, I moved to KCMO. Didn't even know about the earnings tax. And then moved away and then moved back to the Kansas City area. And the thought was, well, where are we going to live now? I said, well, it's not going to be Kansas City, Missouri, because that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and you're not alone, Brent. I mean, you're not alone at all. It's a great call. You wonder how many people, like Kansas City says, well, we got all this money coming in because of the earnings tax. How much more money would they have coming in without an earnings tax? How much money are they missing out on because of an earnings tax? It's almost impossible to calculate it, which is why they continue to do their little song and dance and talk about how necessary it is and how much we really need it. But you'll never really know how good it could have been, how much more growth you could have seen had you not had an earnings tax in place if you're Kansas City, Missouri. It's the big earnings tax day in Kansas City. Good morning. Welcome in. 634. Glad you're joining us on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM, 913-408-7957. So I know we just talked to Brent in Overland Park before the break, and he was somewhat hopeful that the e-tax would go down in flames today. And I know a lot of us are rooting for that, but I'm also not going to blow smoke. It got 77% of the vote 5 years ago. That's what it got. And, Brent brought up the point of, hey, we told the stadiums and the Royals owners and the Chiefs owners to pound sand, we're not doing this anymore. Maybe that gives me some hope. And I know where your head is at, Brent, but this is very different. And here's why. That vote with the Chiefs and the Royals in Jackson County 2 years ago, almost to the day, well, that was different because there was a reason for everyone to hate it. People didn't want to leave the K. Some people didn't want to give billionaires more tax breaks. Like some people didn't like the Crossroads location. This is different. There are some people who will vote to tax themselves, and they'll do it just to stick it to some Johnson County or outstate resident who may work in Kansas City but not live there, and they justify taxing themselves by saying, well, if I don't do this to myself, it could be a lot worse, and therefore I'll keep taxing myself because at least somebody else is helping foot the bill for my services in Kansas City. And that's what the politicians have convinced the residents of for a very long time now.
For the low information voter to hear tell right now, the e-tax is how we fund the whole city.
Yeah.
Public safety, et cetera. So why wouldn't you vote for it, you see, if you believe that?
Yeah. If you, and let's be honest, too, there's no one on the no side here. There's no coordinated effort
that's true.
On the no side. It's just the city council members. There's even some commercials I hear running, not on this station, but on some other stations in our building, where, the city is trying to get people out there to vote yes on the e-tax. I'd be curious to see how it would go if there was a coordinated campaign on the no side, but we've never really had that. John's in Grain Valley. What's up, John? You're on KCMO. Good morning.
Good morning, Pete. You just said something, and the only phrase that came into my head was, the trees continued to vote for the axe because its handle was made of wood. And that's what we keep doing. The money is there. They have to do what you do in your house, what I do in my house, what politicians never seem to do. You got to sit down, what's coming in, what's going out, and where is it going, and do we have all these services we need? Do we fund those? It's like every time you're on a local road, if you hit a pothole, you should get pissed off.
You should.
They're not using the money where it goes, and it's continuing and continuing, and it's this constant Armageddon. If we don't pass this, everyone's going to die. Well, no, not everyone's going to die. It's the same thing with the continuing resolution. The government's going to shut down. No, they don't shut down. They keep getting their taxes. They keep doing this because there's never a check on spending. Mm-hmm. And that's what it comes down to. And I would suggest everybody on this, vote no, send a baseline message. No, you have enough. Make it work like we do. That's it. I'm done.
That's nice, John. That's nice, my man. Well done. That's outstanding. 2 hours early on the Tirade Tuesday from John in Grain Valley. 913-408-7957. Kansas City Star wrote an article here, why Kansas City's earnings tax is the most critical item on your spring ballot. Did Mayor Lucas ghostwrite this thing for the Kansas City Star? Like, it's one thing if you're going to write something in the opinion part of the Kansas City Star saying, hey, here's why we think the earnings tax is a good thing for Kansas City. If this was in the opinion section, that's fine. But this was a news story in the Kansas City Star headlined, why the earnings tax is the most critical item on your spring ballot. And it's like, okay, that's a fine opinion, but that's not really a news piece. That's not really a news headline. And the lead, like the photo on the story, is a bunch of firefighters running into a building that's lit up that looks like it's AI generated, by the way. I don't think this is a real firefight that these guys are going to. So right away you have the drama of, we love our firefighters, and we do. We love our first responders. Look at these guys. Look at these manly men running into the fire. Oh, yeah, vote yes on the e-tax. It's always how it's done. As if buildings will just burn to the ground without the earnings tax. Criminals will run wild and run rampant, although some may argue that's already happening anyway, so what's it really accomplishing with the earnings tax? The potholes will just be craters all up and down Warnell. Oh, wait, you mean that already happens? Oh, okay. All right, so there's another one that makes you question what exactly the money's being spent on. Like all these different things that you look at and you say to yourself, yeah, but as John noted, the low information voter is going to see that and say, well, I like my cops, I like my firefighters, so I'm going to keep taxing myself. That's how this is going to go today. But hey, you know what? If you're seeing otherwise at the polls, if you're out there voting today, I'm just curious because the other thing is low voter turnout. That's where things began on the show when we talked about this. If there's no one at the polls when you go, expect it to pass with flying colors. If there's maybe a long line, it might be interesting. Maybe it's, 65-35 instead of 77-23, which is what it was 5 years ago. But it's something to at least keep in mind and keep a close eye on. 913-408-7957. On the text line, Pete, yeah, the no side of this is too busy working to pay the e-tax. Like, I get it. I know that this texter's joking. I can see the laughing, crying emojis they've added to the text, so I appreciate the humor there. But let me just note this as well. I am sick of hearing people say, I've got a job, I can't vote. It's all the people without jobs who get to go vote. The turnout's like 12%. Get out there, go vote. I don't want to hear complaining, belly aching. I don't have time. You're going to walk in, you're going to walk out in under 10 minutes, and at least you can send a message to Kansas City, if nothing else. At the very least, you can do that. So I am intrigued to hear from you this morning on this e-tax here on KCMO Talk Radio. On the text line, Pete, if people are going to not pass the e-tax, it'll be 10-year death march because it'll be phased out over 10 years. That's exactly right. It would be a phase out over 10 years. Here's the other interesting part. Because of state law, if it were to be voted down, it could never be added back in. That's why I'm fascinated by the idea of if there was ever a coordinated effort against the earnings tax, it won't be this year, it'd have to be 5 years from now. If there was a serious coordinated effort against the earnings tax and it was voted down, it's not like the mayor and the city council could try to put it back on the ballot. It would be done. It would be phased out and it would be over. And that would force more fiscal responsibility on the city. And stop with the dumb games like Port KC and some of the other operations and grifts that they've got going on around town. That planning would have to start tomorrow because that's how difficult it would be. But if there was a coordinated big money effort to, in 2031, drop the e-tax in Kansas City, man, that would be a really fascinating thing to follow. It would be amazing. But it's unlikely to happen today. On the text line, Pete, without the e-tax, the homeless will be homeless again. Yes, yeah, that's probably not going to change. Pete, that 1% is paying for Rex Archer's retirement and Thanksgiving dinner.
Thanksgiving.
Oh, man.
Boy, I love Thanksgiving.
The text line's on fire today.
This is absolutely lit. This is lit.
Hey, you guys are letting it rip already. It's 6:43 on a Tuesday, and the text line is just rocking. I love that. So Pete Hegseth was scheduled to have a press conference right now. That was the plan as of yesterday afternoon after the President of the United States did his marathon press conference. But then it was announced late last night that press conference for Pete Hegseth was not going to happen. Now, why? Well, we're sitting here, of course, on a day when we could be 13 hours away from the United States bombing Iranian bridges and power plants and really decimating the country even further. And as the president infamously said last week, sending Iran back to the Stone Ages. And it looks like any chance of a deal is starting to fade. That's what the reports are this morning. You're seeing some impact as well in the stock market before things open up here in about an hour and a half. You have oil rising to $115 a barrel in the pre-market trading hours. So that's something to watch as well. And remember, oil was at about $60 a barrel less than 2 months ago. So oil is approaching doubling where it was just 2 months ago on a per barrel basis. So that's where things are at right now this morning as we await for whatever tonight's going to bring, as this 8 p.m. Eastern time deadline looks like it's going to come and go without a deal coming to fruition between the United States, Israel, and Iran. So now we just wait to see what exactly that is going to mean and how that's going to play out. I believe we may have just had here in the last couple of minutes, did we get a post here from the president on Truth Social? Hang on one sec. Oh, we did, but it's not related to anything tonight. It's about 2 more major pharmaceutical companies launching products through Trump RX. So, hey, this guy's doing a lot of things at once, okay? He's got his mind in a bunch of different places. That came out here just a couple of minutes ago. But the latest as well on the deadline for tonight is that with Iran about 13 hours away from this imposed deadline by the United States, we also know that the U.S. has just struck Iran's Karg Island, which processes 90% of Iranian oil. So that is some breaking news here in the last few minutes. Mark, if you don't mind, I'm going to put this clip in here, a different Trey Yingst clip in, if we can run that from just a few minutes ago on Fox and Friends, where Trey Yingst in Israel is reporting on this attack on Karg Island from the United States just off the coast of Iran. Here we go.
Iranian state media says that explosions were just reported on Iran's Karg Island. This is where 90% of Iran's oil exports are processed. We have not yet confirmed this with Israeli or American sources, but again, Iranian state media says that explosions were just reported on Iran's Karg Island.
All right, so that is where 90% of Iran's oil exports are being processed. So is this part of a head fake by the United States? Was this deadline of 8 p.m. Eastern time tonight never really the actual deadline? We'll have to wait and see how it plays out.
Was it 8 p.m. our time or their time?
Well,
sometimes he's messing with us with the
exactly.
times.
I mean, was it really 8 a.m. Eastern time? Because that's 7 minutes ago, right? We're sitting here at 7:07. So there is a lot of moving parts right now, and obviously we'll have it covered all morning here on KCMO. Now, tie it back to what happened over the weekend with this amazing rescue mission. What we also learned yesterday from the President of the United States in this other Trey Yingst audio clip I'm going to play is that the B-2 stealth bombers flying from Whiteman Air Force Base were bombing the you-know-what out of Iran while we were sitting there in one of the most intense rescue missions in U.S. military history over the weekend. While the rescue mission is going on, the B-2 bombers are destroying underground Iranian headquarters while this is all happening.
Harris, good morning. High-ranking U.S. sources telling Fox News that while that rescue was ongoing over the weekend, that CENTCOM commander Admiral Brad Cooper directed a strike against an IRGC underground headquarters outside of the Iranian capital of Tehran. Fox News has learned that B-2 bombers were used during this strike, along with massive ordnance penetrators, bunker buster bombs, to target this facility, the same weapons used in Operation Midnight Hammer. And I am told by these high-ranking U.S. sources that the headquarters of the IRGC was obliterated in that strike. This is significant because it speaks to the intelligence and military excellence of the U.S. military. As this rescue was ongoing, they were hammering the Iranian regime just outside the capital of Tehran with B-2 bombers overhead, U.S. Special Forces on the ground, more than 100 of them, rescuing that airman and bringing the fight to the IRGC just outside of the Iranian capital.
All right, that was Trey Yingst, Fox News, yesterday, sharing some of that information on these B-2 bombers, which dropped 30,000-pound GBU bunker buster bombs, also known as massive ordnance penetrators, on an underground compound belonging to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps over the weekend. Unbelievable. Right here in Whiteman Air Force Base. What they did, they were now part of Operation Midnight Hammer last summer. They kicked off Operation Epic Fury, and they were back at it over the weekend. Coming right here from Whiteman. Unbelievable. So on top of that, what is the president's schedule? What's the official schedule for today? I think that's always worth noting. So the official schedule for today that gets released by the White House every day. Here's what he's got. Right now is what's being called executive time. There's only 3 things on the schedule today. 8 a.m. Eastern time right now, executive time for the President of the United States. At 4 p.m. this afternoon, he's got a policy meeting in the Oval Office. And then at 7 p.m., an hour before the deadline, he's got dinner with the U.S. ambassador to India. I don't know. That seems a little tight up against the deadline to be having dinner with the U.S. ambassador to India. But, hey, what do I know? And who knows what that schedule actually means and what's not being reported on that schedule. That's what I am intrigued by as well from the President of the United States. I don't think anybody really knows what exactly the plan is going to be for tonight. I don't think it's as simple as 8 p.m. comes and then we're, blowing up bridges and blowing up power plants. I really don't think that's it. Trump usually has something else up his sleeve and is not going to so obviously signal what the plans are. I don't believe that. I don't think we're going to be sitting here at 7:01 Central Time tonight and the breaking news sounder is going to come on from Fox News on this radio station, and they'll be like, well, the attacks are underway. Like, I don't believe that. And I don't think a deal's going to be done either. I don't. It's become pretty obvious that Iran's ask on its side is so unreasonable that there's no way the United States could agree to it, to no future attacks under any circumstance. Like, why would you agree to that if you're the United States? There's no way you would agree to it. So what Iran is, I believe, wanting to do here is kind of run out the clock and just feel like the political pain for Trump will get so bad that he'll agree to some deal that isn't really a good deal for the United States, and Iran can get what it wants, and Trump can say, hey, I got a great deal out of this thing, just believe me. And it won't be a great deal, but it'll give him the off-ramp that he needs. But to Trump's credit, there's no evidence to suggest he's willing to take a bad deal right now, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I feel like Iran's playing the international law thing because they know they can get England and Italy and all these people on their side and maybe try to wear it down, to your point, to run out the clock. But,
yes,
I think Trump's already got that plan figured out.
I do. I agree with you there. So we do have a new post on social media from the President of the United States. Here's what it says. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. This is 6 minutes ago. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. All caps. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. Well, what's your interpretation of that? (913-408-7957). I want to collect my thoughts and get your thoughts and share it with you next, right here on KCMO. The President of the United States has issued a new post on social media 15 minutes ago, writing, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. That is from President Trump just a few minutes ago, referring to the 8 p.m. Eastern time deadline that he has imposed tonight for Iran to negotiate a deal. I'll get to your calls here coming up. I do want to quickly hear from KT McFarland right now, former Deputy National Security Advisor on Fox.
Oil infrastructure. We're not going after children and civilians. Who's going after them? It's the Iranian government that's saying to their children, go stand in front of the power plants so you can be human shields.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, when I read this, I interpret this as there's going to be, does this mean that he's working with the good guys over there to work on a new regime change? And then he's going to go in and take out all the rest of the bad guys, the regime, the leaders that are still in office and we are still alive?
You know, what he said yesterday in the press conference, which is very revealing, he said, look at the mistake we made in Iraq, where the Bush administration went in and they fired everybody. They fired all the military, all the civilians, all the government workers, and then we had to occupy it and we had to run it. That's not what President Trump wants. He wants a change regime at the top, and maybe the top tier doesn't agree to the change. Maybe the second tier does. Maybe we get to the third tier, because also in the last 48 hours, a number of senior Iranian military and intelligence officials were taken out. We've got the addresses of everybody we need to take out. We are looking now for a regime, a new regime, a changed regime, or maybe the old regime which changes its mind. We want to work with them the same way we've worked with Venezuela. And that's why I think yesterday when President Trump gave his press conference, he kept talking about Venezuela. That's the model we want.
Well, and Katie, let me ask you, so there still would remain, this is going to be quite a remarkable 12 hours, but one thing that's still at the heart of this is this 60% enriched uranium. How do you see that playing out? Because what we're talking about is a very kinetic, significant bombing that is coming possibly in the next 12 hours, but you still have that enriched uranium at 60%.
And hardened. It's in hardened sites. It's not sitting in plain sight. So our demands have remained consistent throughout. You know, no nuclear weapons, no highly enriched uranium, no missiles that are capable of reaching the United States, keep open the Strait of Hormuz. We're consistent about it. And President Trump's made it very clear. The highly enriched uranium is the critical part of a nuclear weapon. Now, if it's true that President Trump said they're no longer even, we've taken off the nuclear weapons issue off the table, that means he's confident that either they're going to have the new or changed regime in Iran say, okay, we're going to stop enriching uranium, we're going to turn over our highly enriched uranium. There will be a point at which, even if they agree to it, we'll have to verify that. Trust but verify, and we'll see how that goes. Do they let in inspectors? Do we have to have somebody on the ground who takes a look and sees, have they really kept their word on this? This is not, even if we get an agreement within the next 12 hours, then it'll be the enforcement of that agreement and the certainty that they are following that agreement.
That's a good point from KT McFarland, former national security advisor, just moments ago on Fox News after the president puts up a new Truth Social post here this hour saying a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionary and wonderful can happen. Who knows? We'll find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. That is from President Trump. Obviously, his goal here is not going to be to kill Iranian people because his whole purpose of this from the get-go was to free them in part and obviously make the West safer. So that there, but starting off the post like that, I don't quite understand because it's very obvious the people in charge of Iran don't care about their own people. So it's not a threat to the Iranian leadership to say we're going to kill your people. In fact, Iran will put its people in the way as human shields. We know that. So that's where I admit I'm just confused. Maria's on KCMO in Kansas City. Hey, Maria.
Hey there. How you doing? Good morning. Thank you for having me on the air.
What's going on?
Well, like I was saying, I'm a world peace activist. I have been since 1989. I am pro-abolition of nuclear weapons. That is the cause of Soka Gakkai International. I'm feeling like that is Trump's mission to abolish nuclear weapons. And since Iran is unwilling to get on board with the Board of Peace, it looks like they're going to destroy all of those. I thought to myself, why don't they just take out this new person in charge who won't negotiate? And maybe you guys are correct. It sounds like they might be trying to take out all like-minded people who are pro-nuclear weapons.
Mm-hmm. That might be it, Maria, and I appreciate your input. One thing that was noted there, and I was thinking about this when it was brought up by KT McFarland saying we want the Venezuela model, right? The reality is it's always easier to do that model in South or Central America where you're far more likely to have a like-mindedness with the West, not just in terms of how the government might be structured, but religiously as well. These South American countries are largely Catholic countries. There is obviously more like-mindedness to where the United States is. When you're talking about these Middle East leaders like in Iran who are on suicide missions and have no regard for their own people or even themselves, it's a very different negotiation. It's why it hasn't worked almost every time it's been tried. Savannah Guthrie returned to the Today Show yesterday, her first time since January 30th. Her mother, of course, went missing 2 days later. It got global attention. It was the story for a couple of weeks there in February. And I think it'll be good for her. I thought she handled it like a total pro yesterday. They didn't belabor her being the story. They just got right into the news. And yes, they had moments for her, and those will continue, I'm sure, in the days and weeks to come. She's a personality as well as being a news person. But then you had TMZ. At this point, TMZ looks like such a horse's rear end. And now I was giving TMZ some props last week because they have been kind of outing these members of Congress who have been on vacation and gallivanting around the world during this partial shutdown. I like that from TMZ. But yesterday, TMZ at 2 o'clock in the afternoon posts a video where it says they've received another ransom note from a repeat sender concerning the abduction of Nancy Guthrie. And I'm like, guys, at some point, you're just the boy who cried wolf here. Stop embarrassing yourself. Here was TMZ yesterday afternoon on their X account.
You know, I will share a little bit of news with you. The person who has been incessantly contacting us,
although stopped for a while.
Yeah. We got another letter today from this person, an email saying, I know where her body is and who the kidnapper is. Give me half a Bitcoin and I'll tell you. And this person has been really persistent, knowing that if it's a scam, it's a federal crime.
Right. But they also made the point that they wanted to make it clear that they have nothing to do with it.
Right.
They've been out of the country, but who knows?
We forwarded
it to the FBI,
right,
as we have in the past. And
right.
For whatever reason, and this is the thing we haven't figured out, you have to assume that the law enforcement, they believe that this person is not legit. Otherwise, they would have advised Savannah to pay the money.
Can we just be really transparent? I think you're right that the law enforcement doesn't. There's something.
I just can't figure out why.
There's
why not
something.
Take a flyer? The price of Bitcoin is much lower now. These are like, you could just take a flyer and see what the person knows. The most you lose is 20 grand, 25 grand.
I'll tell you why. My spidey senses tell me that there's something about this guy, because one of the emails he
there's
sent
something.
said,
Harvey Levin. There's something about this guy. Yeah, he knows you're a sucker, Harvey. That's what yes, there is something about the guy. He knows that you're going to talk about him on TMZ. Yeah, there is something about that guy.
Harvey's trying to just give this guy 25 grand. I mean, come on.
I mean, half a Bitcoin, by the way, there's $100,000 reward out there. Bitcoin was 120 grand a few months ago, but Bitcoin's been in the toilet now for almost a year. Keeps going down. So half a Bitcoin's not what it used to be. Maybe this guy, kidnapped Nancy Guthrie when Bitcoin was at 100 grand a pop, and now it's at like 65 grand a pop. So it's been a tough road for him. But TMZ makes itself look terrible by treating this stuff as legitimate, because they've gotten a bunch of these ransom notes. They hadn't gotten one in a while, and now they magically get one the day that Savannah Guthrie returns to the air, and they're like, we've got some more information here. Let's put on our detective caps and move ahead here at TMZ and HQ. Harvey Levin, there's something about this guy. Yeah, he knows you're a sucker, Harvey. That's what we know about the guy.
Well, to Harvey's defense, the guy was out of the country.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, what?
Nigerian prince there, Harvey.
Yeah, come on, Harvey. I mean, geez. Harvey Levin's the guy that you call up and you say, sir, I've kidnapped your grandchildren. I need $700,000 ASAP. Here's my bank account number. And Harvey's like, great, sure, tell me where to send it.
Gonna need that Walmart gift card.
Yeah, $25 Walmart gift cards when you get a chance there, Harvey. Thanks so much. Harvey's like, yeah, sure, I'll get on that right away, sir. Boy, where's that accent from, by the way? Oh, that's Washington State. Really? It sounds like a Nigerian prince to me. What do I know, though? Gosh, dang, unbelievable. What's also unbelievable is the post that went up this morning from the President of the United States on Truth Social. This came 1 hour ago, 50 minutes on the dot. The President of the United States posted on Truth Social, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionary and wonderful can happen. Who knows, all caps? We'll find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. That's quite a way to put it. It's like he's challenging the Iranians to stand up for their country, but they can't yet because the radicals are still in charge, clearly. I don't know what we're expecting the Iranian people to do right now about this. And it's become very clear the Iranians don't care about public threats. They just don't. they see this escalation of words, I believe, in some respects, as weakness angling for an out. I'm not saying the president is weak in this. He's done something that all his predecessors didn't have the cojones to do, but they're not fazed by this. So at best, I think this post is irrelevant. At worst, it could be counterproductive. It doesn't mean that Trump won't follow through, but I think he pretty much has to at this point.